What's up, guys? Today I've got my sketchbook and we're gonna just do some thumbnail sketches to work on conceptualizing some ideas for artwork. I have this idea for a painting that I want to do that's got multiple figures. It's a painting that would be taken from Homer's story, The Odyssey. And essentially the stories of Odysseus meeting his father after 20 years, reuniting with his father, reconnecting with him. And so I have some ideas, but I want to sketch them out and following some of the concepts in imaginative realism. When Gurney talks about thumbnail sketches and preliminary sketches, he says here, thumbnail sketches are tiny, loose, scribbly sketches used to plan a composition. Keeping them small stops you from getting too caught up with detail at this first exploratory stage. And he goes on to talk about the illustrator Howard Pyle, who, even if he felt like he knew what the illustration was that he wanted to be on the first thumbnail sketch, he would do a total of 50 for every illustration. And so right now, we'll talk some more about this chapter and how you can integrate this into your workflow and how you can learn from this chapter. One of the things that he talks about is that you shouldn't do more than 10 minutes on a single thumbnail. So we'll kind of try to play around with that mindset. Maybe we'll even try doing one for 10 minutes. We'll see how that goes. He talks about using multiple media, but today we're just going to be doing what he calls tonal thumbnail sketches to kind of get some ideas out on the page, maybe kind of like gamify and just experiment, not just going with the first idea that we have, but experimenting with different ideas and things like that. So let's hop down here into the sketchbook and I'll show you what we're working with. Hey, future Danny, Winter Danny, wants to tell you about the scene from Homer's Odyssey that I want to make this painting from. So I read this translation of the Odyssey by Robert Fagles, and this scene really jumped out at me. So let me read to you kind of the portions that I'm pulling from to help me kind of visualize how to represent that in the painting. So Odysseus has basically been gone for 20 years, and he's coming back after a long odyssey, of course, of just total turmoil and craziness. Eventually he makes it back home and he's trying to find his dad. So he approaches the thriving vineyard searching for his dad, picking his way to the great orchard searching, but finding neither Dolius nor his sons, nor any hand. These are like servants. They'd just gone off, Dolius in the lead, to gather stones for a dry remaining wall to shore the vineyard up, dry retaining wall to shore the vineyard up. So that's like a component that I'm thinking about putting into the painting, potentially, this broken retaining wall. But as he did find his father alone on that well-worked plot, spading around a sapling, clad in filthy rags, in patched, unseemly shirt, and round his shins he had some ox-hide leggings strapped, patched to keep from getting scraped, and the gloves on his hands to fight against the thorns, and on his head he wore a goatskin skull cap to cultivate his misery that much more. So this is a pretty solid description of Laertes, the father, and I'm going to try and work all of those things in. But in all of these thumbnails, I'm trying to work in the ideas of the saplings, the filthy rags, the ox-hide leggings, and the skull cap and things like that. Long enduring Odysseus, catching sight of him now, a man worn down with years, his heart racked with sorrow, halted under a branching pear tree. That's another thing that I'm thinking about putting in to the painting. Paused and wept. So Odysseus paused and wept, debating head and heart, what should he do now? Kiss and embrace his father, pour out his long tale, now that he had made the journey home to native land, or probe him first and test him every way. Torn, mulling it over, this seemed better. Test the old man first. And this is kind of like the crazy nature of Odysseus, that he's kind of a trickster a little bit, and he's constantly like pretending to be someone he's not. So he has this like whole long back and forth with his dad, and then eventually he kind of like really breaks his dad's heart, And at these words, a black cloud of grief came shrouding over Laertes, both hands clawing the ground for dirt and grime. He poured it over his grizzled head, sobbing in spasms. Odysseus's heart shuddered, a sudden twinge went shooting up through his nostrils. Watching his dear father struggle, he sprang towards him, kissed him, hugged him, crying, "Father, I am your son, myself, the man you're seeking. Home after 20 years, on native ground at last. Hold back your tears, your grief. Let me tell you the news, but we must hurry." Blah, blah, blah. So, Odysseus, Laertes, catching his breath, found his words to answer. You're truly my son, Odysseus, home at last? Give me a sign, some proof, I must be sure. Then Odysseus shows him this scar, and then they go from there. So basically, that's the literature fragments that I'm pulling from to try to capture the emotion and the narrative arc of that scene from one of the oldest books in Western literature. And yeah, we're going to try and take all that in and then thumbnail it out and see what we can come up with. So here you can see one thumbnail sketch that I've done, and here it is measuring against my finger. So not very long. We have two figures here, Odysseus and his father, Laertes. His father's set in a garden. We'll talk more about that scene as I'm drawing here. But this was kind of just my very first attempt at getting some shadow and light and different ideas in there. And so right now, one of the first things that I want to do, I'm just going to use basically a standard #2 pencil. It's a mechanical pencil. This is my kind of anything goes Strathmore hardback sketchbook. And we'll talk about doing thumbnails in other media later on, but right now we're just going to work tonally in black and white with pencil and sketch out some ideas. So I think the next thing that I want to do is experiment actually with a horizontal perspective. So I'm going to kind of make this maybe a little bit wider than the previous one. And, over here I had my figures that were centered, but I think that I want to maybe experiment with having them be not quite centered, and I'm not sure. Why don't we experiment, kind of with rule of thirds, and what if I put Odysseus's head right here? And his father might be, how about on this rule of thirds, even though it's closer to the center? And I like this idea over here of the father kind of reaching up to him, like almost like he fell to his knees. Maybe Odysseus is starting to get down on his knees as well, like one knee. Put a little hat. There's a little stone wall that's broken down, so maybe I'll have that kind of point towards this area. And maybe some stones that are piled up here. And it shows that, Odysseus's dad is working on a a sapling. It's not quite clear. Why don't we put it here on this third? Maybe I'm trying to think about how can I block off these corners. I like the idea of some foliage up here. This is a strong shadow. James Gurney calls these shadows, like, talks about using these shadows that are cast from objects that are off scene, and I could see that. I think I want to keep the foreground pretty dark. Darken up this corner here. And I'm not sure what I want in the background, but let's say we want like the sun, the setting sun. Maybe like the ocean is in the background. Have some cliffs or something. Come down here. It's in Greece, so it's coastal. So they would be backlit. And maybe like edge lit. So the planes facing us would be pretty dark. If there's a fence here, it would be casting a shadow. Let's see here. I'm not sure what kind of pants or anything. I'm not going to worry about that too much. Kind of change some of the angles so that you can see more of the faces. Let's move on. Let's try a different variation. What if I turn them and put the characters on this other third? Let's try that. See what that looks like. So this is just like a place where I can like kind of experiment with different ideas. So again, I'm going to put, Odysseus' head this way. What if I extend the hands? Like, what if they're not like embracing, but they're like almost like he started out, in this pose and then like slid back, like almost like reaching and relinquishing the hold, like they embraced and then he fell to his knees. Maybe that would make more sense. Or maybe, you could look at it too. That way I can maybe put put him like sitting back on his heels. I don't know, I feel like this third, I feel like it makes him so small. I don't think he can be that low to the ground. So yeah, and I don't like that I'm running out of room down here, but I do think that this is sort of an interesting idea. Let me extend this down. This is still kind of like a horizontal this is maybe like an 11:14 type ratio. I block off this corner with foliage and have them backlit again. But Odysseus would be kind of front lit. Let's see. That's an interesting pose. I'm gonna have to play around with that some more. You know, but the whole process here is like, you know, I'm not entirely sure what I want, to be honest. And let me flip this. So let's say that there's a kind of, I don't want to divide the canvas in half. Let me bring, you know, some kind of cliffs or something down here like so. Yeah, and I could have the horizon line be up here. So then I would have to move the sun though. Let me put the sun over here. No, I can't do that because then that'll change the lighting. Here can be the broken stone wall. The sun doesn't have to be in the... You could do like some crashing waves. That would be kind of interesting to like incorporate, you know, like a... maybe we'll keep the sapling over to the side. this leg back a little bit. And block off this edge with a tree. And put like shadows. No, that won't work because if it's being backlit, there wouldn't be shadows there. Have the light rake through across them, so then maybe they're both being illuminated on the inside like this. Face is edge lit. I kind of like that. That's kind of interesting as well. That's almost back to like my square, you know. What if I do a vertical format? Let's experiment with that. You know, how would that look? I mean, I kind of like the idea of the figures more spaced out here than they were in these other sketches. Let's see. What if I keep a similar thing here? Odysseus's head is here. And let's break a rule here. You know what, let me do other things. Let me not be so beholden to the rule of thirds, okay? Let me keep Odysseus' head on the third, but let me bring his head back here a little bit, right? So just a little bit off the third. And let me put, you know, the father's head near this third. So I don't have to I exactly line up with that. Let's see, this is kind of an interesting, already I feel interested in that. You know, the counterbalance between father and son looking up at each other and then this empty space here. I think I want to bring a tree here. I like this idea of this tree. Maybe this could be the sapling, right? I'm going to run that stone wall over this other way pointing up. Okay. father and son kind of holding each other's arms. This father is leaning back, almost like, he's getting pulled up. Yeah, I can even like cut off some of Odysseus here. Put some cloud design. I like that. That's kind of interesting too. These are all like slightly similar but slightly different. Okay, because I don't know what to do, I'm gonna keep them backlit kind of. Or should there be like some animals, like some sheep or something grazing? Do I want there to be a coast? I mean, it would be cool to have like close, medium, and then distant. Let's say that there's something here. Actually, I like that this could be like a little inlet. So let's make this, and right here on the third could be. Let's bring that foliage idea. I don't think I want those there, but that's an interesting idea. I'm gonna make like as if they're like kind of close to the edge, and maybe like it would make sense to me that the like stone wall would kind of be, blocking them from the edge of a cliff. The only thing that I'm not in love with this cliff idea is that there's a painting by Jan Stejka, a Polish painter, who he did something similar, he had them on like kind of a cliff type setting. This is kind of an interesting idea. See, and I had never even really thought about doing something vertical like this. That's interesting. Well, here's what we've gotten so far. And obviously I'm going to keep working. This is only 4 ideas, but one of the things that I'm noticing is that the more that I do these, the more ideas that I get. It's been kind of fun to just experiment with different ideas, and obviously like not to have to worry about color. I think like that's been very beneficial, and in a way I can see the necessity to use a lot of thumbnails, because one of the things that I didn't know when I was starting this was how many things I need to consider. Like, is it a vertical format? Is it a horizontal format? Do I want to do a square? Where do I want the figures to be? And I think this is one of the main things that you should focus on when you're doing your thumbnails, is allow yourself to kind of bounce around between ideas and ideas. Where is your lighting going to come from? Where is your subject going to land? Are you going to use the rule of thirds? You know, and allowing yourself to do multiples of these allows yourself to, you know, do the rule of thirds, and then you start to get more creative ideas. Like, what if I break the rule of thirds subtly? You know, what happens if I do something totally different? What if I move them to the other side of the canvas? So these are ideas that I'm going to continue working on, but this has been a really fascinating exercise and I really enjoy it.